The story begins in the quiet stillness of space, a calm that contrasts sharply with the storm that is about to hit. Earth's people watch in disbelief as their peaceful colony on the distant planet of Seraphis falls under a brutal attack. On the other side of the galaxy, the Kralzak Empire, a ruthless alien race, has set its sights on the human colony. The Kralzak fleet, vast and technologically superior, moves swiftly and efficiently. Without warning, they unleash an unrelenting bombardment, destroying everything in their path. The Galactic Council, composed of many powerful alien races, watches the attack unfold from afar. The Kralzak Empire sends a chilling message to the Council. Humanity is weak. Your technology is primitive. You will fall like the others before you. Their words drip with arrogance, mocking the humans' efforts to stand up for themselves. The Kralzak, with their advanced eye-controlled ships and robots, feel invincible. They believe that no race can stand against their power. But back on Earth, the mood is far from defeated. Ethan Cross, a military strategist known for his sharp mind and even sharper tactics, watches the broadcast with a steely gaze. He is a man of few words, but his reputation speaks volumes. Alongside him stands Lieutenant Mira Solis, a seasoned officer with a deep personal commitment to protect humanity at any cost. Her eyes are burning with determination as she listens to the Kraljak's challenge. They may be technologically advanced, but Mira knows the heart of humanity burns brighter than any machine. The room falls silent as the two of them are called to an emergency briefing. The military leaders of Earth are gathered, each one anxious about the attack and the future of humanity. They know that the Kraljak are planning something much larger, and Earth is their next target. The aliens have made it clear they will not stop until humanity is destroyed. With their eye-controlled fleet, they boast of their power, leaving no room for negotiation. They are coming, and they are coming for Earth. Ethan stands before the room, his face stoic. He knows what the next words he speaks will mean for the future. As the tension in the room thickens, he breaks the silence with a calm but forceful voice. The Kraljak want war. He pauses for a moment, letting his words sink in. Then we'll show them what war really looks like. His words, though simple, carry the weight of the entire human race. They are a declaration, not of fear, but of defiance. Outside the walls of the command center, the first signs of the alien assault are already being felt. The Kraljak fleet has arrived in the orbit of Mars, and the first missiles are already streaking through the sky, turning the red planet's surface into a burning battlefield. Humanity's military fleet, small and vastly outnumbered, begins to mobilize. The camera cuts between the alien forces, massive and overwhelming, and the human fleet, only a fraction of the size, but full of desperate determination. The odds are stacked against them, but Earth's soldiers are not ready to surrender. The scene shifts to the human command center, where chaos is just beginning. The countdown has begun, and it's clear. Earth is about to face its greatest challenge yet. The Kraljak are not just coming to attack, they are coming to annihilate. But Ethan Cross and Lieutenant Mira Solis stand tall, unshaken. Their minds work quickly, calculating every move, every strategy. They know that despite being underprepared, humanity has something the Kraljak can't account for: courage, resourcefulness, and an unbreakable will. As the alien ships approach, the room fills with a sense of urgency. The humans are outnumbered 10-1, and their fleet is vastly inferior to the advanced technology of the Kraljak. But there is no turning back now. The first battle of the war is about to begin, and humanity's fate hangs in the balance. Ethan turns to the assembled leaders, his voice low but filled with unshakable resolve. We may not have their numbers or their firepower, but we have something far stronger. We have the heart of humanity. The final preparations begin. The human fleet, despite its lack of strength, is equipped with every advantage they can muster. Cloaking devices are activated, drones are deployed, and experimental AI systems come online. These are humanity's last-ditch efforts, technologies that have not yet been fully tested in battle. If they fail, Earth will fall. But if they succeed, humanity may have a chance. The camera zooms out to show the small human fleet against the backdrop of the vast, ominous Kralljak ships. The tension builds as the alien forces begin their descent into Earth's atmosphere, their weapons primed for destruction. The countdown continues. It's only a matter of time before the battle begins. In these final moments, the camera lingers on Ethan's face as he prepares for what's to come. His expression is calm, but there's a fire in his eyes. He knows the odds are stacked against them, but he also knows that humanity's greatest strength lies in the fight. As the clock ticks down, the audience can feel the pressure, the urgency of the moment. With one final resolute command, the human fleet moves into position. The first shots are fired, the beginning of what promises to be a battle unlike any the galaxy has ever seen. The fate of Earth, of humanity itself, is now in the hands of a few brave men and women. As the action intensifies, the screen fades to black, leaving the audience on the edge of their seats, eager to see how this war will unfold. The air was thick with tension as Earth's defenders watched helplessly through their screens. Mars, their first line of defense, was under attack. The Kralljak fleet had arrived in full force, their ships hanging ominously in the red sky like a swarm of dark shadows. Their weapons were already firing, turning the Martian surface into a battleground. Massive explosions lit up the sky as the first waves of Kralljak warships began their assault, laying waste to everything in their path. The Martian colonies, once thriving hubs of human life, were reduced to rubble within minutes. The alien ships, powered by superior AI and guided by flawless coordination, unleashed hell with pinpoint precision. The humans on the ground had no chance against the overwhelming firepower of the Kralljak fleet. Back on Earth, the military leaders scrambled to react. Ethan Cross stood in front of the war map, eyes scanning the projected images of Mars. Lieutenant Mira Solis stood beside him, a deep frown creasing her brow. This was it, their first real taste of the war that had been thrust upon them. The Kralljak were here, and they weren't holding back. But humanity's survival instinct kicked in. "We've got one shot at this," Ethan said, his voice cold with determination. "We'll take them by surprise." Mira nodded, a fire burning in her eyes. She trusted Ethan's strategy, but the odds were insurmountable. The human forces were still reeling from the suddenness of the attack. Their fleet, though equipped with cloaking technology and experimental drones, was still far less advanced than the Kralljaks. But Ethan had something up his sleeve. Humanity might be outmatched in strength, but it wasn't going down without a fight. The battle began as the human fleet launched its first counterattack. Cloaked drones, barely visible to the naked eye, streaked through space, launching a series of surprise missile strikes against the alien ships. The Kralljak had superior technology, but they weren't prepared for the tactics humanity had developed in secret. The human drones unleashed their payloads, creating a series of powerful explosions that rocked the alien fleet. The Kralljak responded quickly, their ships moving in a flawless formation to retaliate. The humans had caught them off guard, but it wasn't enough to turn the tide. The aliens' firepower was overwhelming, and the human ships were vastly outnumbered. The battle was fierce, with each side trading blows in a violent spectacle. The sound of explosions filled the air as humanity's forces struggled to hold their ground. From the command center, Mira watched the chaos unfold on the screens. She could hear the roar of distant explosions and see the flash of laser fire as it cut through the void. She clenched her fists, unwilling to let the loss of Mars be in vain. The human fleet held steady, using every weapon at their disposal. They fired orbital bombardments, their aim true, taking down several Kralljak ships, but the cost was steep. The alien fleet retaliated, destroying several human ships in return. It was a brutal exchange. The humans had been holding their own, but the mounting casualties were evident. The alien fleet was relentless, and despite the humans' best efforts, the Kraljak's advanced technology kept them one step ahead. Ethan's voice crackled over the comms, urging everyone to hold their positions, to fight with everything they had. It was then that the unthinkable happened. A Kraljak dreadnought, an enormous warship that dwarfed the human ships, entered the battlefield. It was heavily armored, its weapons designed to decimate entire fleets. The dreadnought's powerful lasers cut through human ships like a hot knife through butter. The humans were no match for its sheer power. The dreadnought moved toward Mars, its target clear, the heart of humanity's defenses. General Bonner, one of the highest-ranking officers in the human military, was in command of the ground defense forces. He knew this was a fight they could not win. The Kraljak dreadnought would destroy everything if it wasn't stopped. With no time to waste and no way to escape, General Bonner made a decision. "Order the fighters to intercept the dreadnought," he said, his voice steady. "I'll take it down." Mira tried to protest, but Bonner was already making his move. He boarded the lead fighter, the ship's engines roaring to life. His plan was reckless, but it was their only chance. He would sacrifice himself to destroy the dreadnought, knowing that it would buy humanity the time they needed. The screen flickered as Bonner's fighter raced toward the Kraljak ship. Mira's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the fight unfold. Bonner's ship moved quickly, dodging laser fire as he approached the massive dreadnought. He deployed a powerful bomb, one designed to disable the ship's main reactor. With a final message sent to the command center, Bonner's fighter detonated the bomb, sending a massive explosion through the heart of the dreadnought. The ship shuddered and then erupted into flames. It was a devastating blow to the Kraljak fleet, but it came at a cost. General Bonner's sacrifice ensured that humanity's forces had a chance to regroup, but it also left a hole in the heart of the human resistance. Mira watched, her eyes filled with sorrow, as Bonner's ship disappeared into the explosion. Her grief was raw, but there was no time to mourn. They had to keep fighting. She turned to Ethan, her voice trained but determined. "We can't let him die for nothing. We fight on. We don't stop." As the battle raged on, humanity's fleet continued to hold their ground. They had lost many ships, and their forces were stretched thin. But they had taken down a Kraljak dreadnought, a blow that had shaken the alien fleet. The Kraljak were still strong, but humanity had proven that they weren't just going to lie down and be wiped out. The first clash was over, but the war was far from won. And with Bonner's sacrifice in their hearts, the humans knew that they couldn't afford to lose. They would fight, no matter the cost. The war had been raging for weeks, and humanity had been pushed to the brink. The Kraljak Empire's assault on Earth was relentless, their superior technology and AI-driven fleet taking down every human ship in their path. The alien forces had proven themselves to be unstoppable, and even with their best efforts, the humans were losing ground. But then, in the quiet of the command center, a spark of hope flickered. Ethan Cross, the brilliant strategist who had led humanity's efforts so far, was on the verge of a breakthrough. After weeks of fighting and analysis, Ethan had uncovered something that could change the course of the war. The Kraljak's fleet, though powerful, was controlled by a central AI located in the heart of their flagship, a massive ship that loomed like a dark god over the galaxy. If the AI could be disabled, it would disrupt the entire fleet, leaving them vulnerable. Ethan knew it was a long shot, but it was humanity's last hope. "This is it," Ethan said, his voice calm but resolute. "We strike at the heart of the Kraljak Empire. We infiltrate their flagship, disable their AI, and cripple their fleet. If we fail, Earth falls. But if we succeed, we turn the tide of this war." Mira Solis, standing beside him, felt the weight of his words. The odds were astronomical, but there was no other choice. If they didn't take this risk, humanity would be destroyed. She nodded, her mind already working through the mission's details. The plan was dangerous, bordering on suicide. A small team of soldiers, armed with the latest cloaking devices, would infiltrate the Kralljak flagship and make their way to the AI core. It would be a covert mission, relying on stealth and surprise. If they were detected, it would be over. The Kralljak were known for their elite soldiers and powerful robots, and the flagship's defenses were far beyond anything humanity had encountered before. But there was no time to waste. The clock was ticking, and the human fleet was running out of options. Mira was chosen to lead the mission. She had been a seasoned officer in the human military, and her quick thinking and courage made her the ideal candidate for the job. She gathered a small team of soldiers, each one hand-picked for their skills and experience. The team was a mix of soldiers, engineers, and tech specialists, all of whom had undergone intense training for covert operations. The mission was set into motion, and soon Mira and her team were on board a stealth ship, cloaked and ready for the most dangerous operation of their lives. The Kralljak flagship was a fortress of metal and advanced technology, and as they approached, the tension in the air was palpable. The stealth ship maneuvered carefully through the enemy fleet, avoiding detection. Every second felt like a lifetime as they inched closer to their target. Inside the Kralljak flagship, the halls were dark, eerily silent. The ship's AI controlled everything, from the lighting to the life support systems. Mira and her team disembarked, cloaked in their advanced gear, blending into the shadows as they moved through the massive alien ship. The atmosphere was cold and sterile, with walls made of a strange metallic substance that seemed to pulse with energy. The crew of the flagship was nowhere to be seen, but the team knew better than to think they were alone. The Kralljak flagship was not only a warship, it was a living fortress. Every inch of the ship was wired with sensors, and every room was monitored by the ship's eye. The team moved swiftly, relying on their cloaking devices to stay hidden. They knew that one wrong move could mean the end of their mission and their lives. The sound of their footsteps was muffled by the soft hum of the ship's machinery, but Mira's heart raced in her chest. They were deep in enemy territory now, and time was running out. As they made their way through the dark halls, the first sign of danger came. One of the team members, Lieutenant Mark, froze in place as a series of flashing red lights lit up the corridor. It was a warning system, triggered by the ship's AI, and it meant that the ship was aware of their presence. Mira's mind raced. They had been detected. "Move," she hissed. The team quickly sprinted forward, the sound of their heavy boots clanging against the cold metal floors. The ship's security systems came alive, and automated turrets emerged from the walls, firing powerful energy blasts in their direction. Mira's team ducked and dodged, but they couldn't afford to stay exposed for too long. They needed to reach the AI core before they were overwhelmed. The close-quarters combat was intense. The team fought off alien soldiers and robotic defenders, using every weapon and tactic at their disposal. The sound of plasma guns firing and alien soldiers shouting in an unknown language filled the corridors. Mira's heart was pounding, but she kept her focus. The AI core was close, and they couldn't stop now. The aliens had anticipated their every move. The deeper they went into the flagship, the more resistance they encountered. The corridors grew narrower, and the shadows grew darker. Mira and her team had no choice but to fight their way through. The stakes were higher than ever, and the tension was unbearable. Every step forward was a fight for survival. Finally, they'd reached the chamber that housed the AI core. It was a massive room, filled with glowing consoles and alien machinery. In the center stood the AI, its presence almost tangible, like a dark cloud hovering over the room. Mira knew they had to act fast. As the team set up explosives to disable the core, a cold, mechanical voice echoed through the room. "You cannot defeat us," the AI said. "We know your every move." The Kralljak had anticipated the infiltration, using hidden sensors throughout the ship to track Mira and her team's every step. The AI had been watching them the entire time, waiting for this moment. In a final act of desperation, Mira detonated the explosives. The room erupted in a brilliant flash of light as the AI core was destroyed. The flagship trembled, and a deep, resonating sound echoed through the ship as its systems began to fail. The mission was a success, but at a great cost. The team had suffered heavy losses, and Mira's heart ached for the soldiers who had given everything for this victory. As the ship's systems collapsed, Mira and the remaining members of the team rushed to escape. They had completed their mission, but now they had to get out alive. As they returned to the human fleet, Mira's thoughts lingered on the sacrifice of her fallen comrades. They had struck at the heart of the Kralzak Empire, and in doing so, had given humanity a chance to survive. The Kralzak's control over their fleet was broken, and now it was up to the human forces to finish what they had started. The battle was far from over, but humanity had just taken a crucial step toward victory. The cold, metallic corridors of the Kralzak flagship echoed with the sound of hurried footsteps. Mira Solis and her team had come so far, their mission teetering on the edge of success. The AI core was within reach, the heart of the alien empire's command structure, and the hope of humanity's survival. But as the team advanced, a dark shadow of doubt began to creep over Mira's mind. She had trusted every member of her team, but now, that trust was about to be shattered in the most painful way. It all started when Lieutenant Mark, one of the most trusted members of Mira's squad, began acting strangely. At first, it was subtle, a hesitation during their approach, a momentary glance over his shoulder, as though he was waiting for something. Mira dismissed it at first, chalking it up to nerves. But then, the moment of betrayal came, and it was worse than she could have imagined. They had just passed through a security checkpoint, and the team was preparing to breach the final door that led to the AI core room. Suddenly, Mark turned on them. With a swift motion, he activated his comms, signaling to the Kralzak forces that were waiting for them. Mira's heart sank as Mark's cold, calculating voice echoed through her earpiece. "They've made it this far. You know what to do." In that instant, Mira's world seemed to shatter. She watched in horror as Mark stepped aside, revealing his true allegiance to the Kralzak. The enemy forces, hidden in the shadows, sprang to life. The doors slammed shut, trapping them inside the hall, and a wave of alien soldiers rushed forward, led by Mark. His betrayal was complete. "What are you doing?" Mira yelled, her voice a mixture of disbelief and fury. Mark didn't respond. He only smirked, his eyes cold and devoid of any remorse. He had been feeding information to the Kralzak all along, ensuring that the humans would be led directly into a trap. The shock of betrayal hit Mira like a punch to the gut, but there was no time to dwell on it. The rest of the team was already engaged in a fight for their lives. Gunfire filled the air as Mira's squad fought desperately against the overwhelming alien forces. The odds were now stacked against them in every way. Mira tried to lead the remaining members of her team, but one by one, they were cut down. Each loss was like a knife to her heart. The betrayal felt like a personal wound, and the heavy weight of the situation was almost too much to bear. Mark had made it clear, this was no longer just a mission. It was a battle for survival. In the chaos of the battle, Mira's focus never wavered. She fought with everything she had, using her combat training to dodge alien strikes and return fire with deadly precision. But there were too many of them. The alien soldiers were relentless, and their robots were practically unstoppable. With every passing minute, the chances of survival grew slimmer. Mira could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins as she pushed herself harder, faster. She couldn't afford to lose now, not when they were so close, not when humanity's last hope was in her hands. She fought through the pain of seeing her comrades fall, each one a bitter reminder of how far they'd come and what they stood to lose. But her resolve was ironclad. She couldn't let Mark's treachery be the end of them. The fight seemed endless, but eventually, Mira found herself face to face with the traitor. Mark stood in the center of the room, surrounded by Kralzak soldiers, his eyes fixed on her with a chilling sense of triumph. He didn't seem to care about the lives lost. the sacrifices made. He was too far gone, consumed by the power the Kralljak had promised him. You should have known. Mark sneered, his weapon aimed directly at Mira. You were never going to win. The Kralljak were always going to crush you. Mira's eyes locked onto his, her heart beating faster, not out of fear, but out of pure rage. The betrayal, the deaths of her team, it all came down to this moment. She knew there was no other choice. She would end this, once and for all. Without hesitation, she lunged at him, her movements swift and precise. It was a brutal hand-to-hand fight. Mark was strong, and his Kralljak-enhanced abilities made him a formidable opponent, but Mira's determination was stronger. She fought with everything she had, using every ounce of her strength and skill to overpower him. The two clashed in a deadly dance, punches flying, bodies crashing against the cold walls of the flagship. Mark managed to land a blow, knocking Mira back, but she quickly regained her footing. Her mind raced, her thoughts focused only on one thing: defeating him. The memories of her fallen comrades flashed through her mind, giving her the strength to keep fighting. With a final decisive move, Mira knocked Mark's weapon from his hand and threw him to the ground. She stood over him, her breath heavy, her body battered, but her will unbroken. "Where's your victory now?" Mira whispered, her voice steady despite the pain. Mark looked up at her, his face twisted in anger and regret, but it was too late. With a swift motion, Mira incapacitated him, leaving him on the floor, helpless and defeated. With the traitor dealt with, Mira turned her attention to the task at hand. The mission was far from over, but they had been given a second chance. She made her way to the AI core, the heart of the Kralljak Empire's power. The room was filled with advanced alien technology, glowing and pulsing with an eerie light. Mira's hands shook as she activated the EMP device, knowing that this was their last chance to stop the alien fleet. The countdown began, and the EMP blast would temporarily disable the entire Kralljak fleet, giving humanity a fighting chance. Mira's heart pounded as the countdown ticked down, but just as she was about to trigger the EMP, the Kralljak forces flooded the room. There was no time to escape. She pressed the button. A brilliant flash of light filled the room, and for a moment, everything went still. The EMP had worked. The Kralljak fleet was temporarily disabled, and humanity had a fighting chance. But at what cost? As Mira left the AI core, she looked back at the destruction, the sacrifice, and the loss. But she also saw hope. Humanity's last hope was still alive, and they had one chance to win this war. They had to finish what they had started, no matter the cost. The EMP blast had done its job. For a fleeting moment, humanity had a fighting chance. The Kralljak fleet, momentarily paralyzed, was no longer a terrifying force of destruction. But the battle was far from over. As the dust settled from the blast, humanity's forces prepared for the final assault, knowing that this was their one shot at winning the war. The Kralljak were down, but they were not out. Ethan Cross, the mastermind behind humanity's desperate resistance, stood before a massive holographic map in the war room. The final offensive had begun, with Earth's forces launching a full-scale assault on the Kralljak flagship. The battle would be fierce, and everyone knew that the stakes had never been higher. This was not just a fight for victory, it was a fight for survival. The alien flagship, though temporarily crippled by the EMP, was far from defenseless. The Kralljak were swift to retaliate, regrouping their forces and launching a brutal counterattack. Thousands of alien ships, powered by AI and advanced weaponry, descended upon Earth in a coordinated strike, unleashing an unimaginable fury. Cities across the planet were obliterated in an instant. Lasers and plasma beams scorched the Earth's surface, turning entire landscapes into nothing more than smoldering craters. It was the final warning from the Kralljak. Humanity was weak, and their resistance would be crushed. As the devastation unfolded, Ethan's face remained stoic, Though the weight of the situation was evident in his eyes, the counterattack was worse than anything they had anticipated. Earth's cities were falling, and millions of lives were at risk. But in the face of destruction, Ethan knew there was one last gamble they could take. He made the call to launch a planet-wide EMP. It was a dangerous decision, one that could backfire. The EMP would shut down every piece of technology on Earth, leaving humanity as vulnerable as the Kralljak. It would disable their fleets, their weapons, and every defense they had worked so hard to build. In essence, humanity would be left defenseless, completely dependent on the strength of their soldiers, the courage of their hearts, and the hope that they could overcome the Kralljak in a battle where technology could no longer help them. The room fell silent as the order was given. The EMP was activated, and for a brief moment, all technology across Earth, and the Kralljak fleet, went dark. The sound of engines, weapons, and communication systems faded into eerie silence. For a few moments, there was only the quiet hum of the planet as it held its breath, waiting for what would come next. The EMP had its intended effect. The Kralljak fleet was left exposed, unable to use their advanced weapons or deploy their robotic soldiers. But Earth, too, was crippled. Every human ship, every defense system, every piece of technology that had once been a lifeline to survival was now useless. Humanity's forces were on equal footing with the aliens, vulnerable, unarmed, and surrounded. Yet, despite the odds, Earth's soldiers stood ready for one final push. The Kralljak were not known for mercy, and their retaliatory strike was swift and brutal. The battle that followed was nothing short of a massacre. Soldiers from both sides boarded enemy ships in close-quarters combat, fighting tooth and nail for control. The air was thick with the roar of explosions, the crackling of energy weapons, and the screams of combatants locked in mortal struggle. Mira Solis and her squad were in the thick of the fight, their cloaking devices useless in the EMP aftermath. They were vulnerable, but their resolve was stronger than ever. With only their weapons and their training, they'd fought their way through the alien vessels, determined to deal the final blow to the Kralljak Empire. The aliens, once seemingly unstoppable, now seemed more like animals backed into a corner. With no advanced technology to rely on, they fought with pure aggression, using their superior strength and combat skills to overwhelm their enemies. But humanity's soldiers, fueled by desperation and a fierce will to survive, were a force to be reckoned with. Mira's team fought as if their lives depended on it, because they did. Every floor of the Kralljak flagship became a battleground. The soldiers used anything they could find as weapons, wrenches, scrap metal, even their fists, to fend off the alien invaders. The once pristine corridors of the flagship were now torn apart, littered with debris and the fallen bodies of both humans and aliens. The air was thick with the smell of smoke and blood, and the sound of weapons clashing echoed through the ship like a symphony of war. The fighting was brutal, but there was no turning back. The soldiers pushed forward, inch by inch, determined to reach the heart of the Kralljak flagship and destroy it once and for all. Mira led the charge, her eyes filled with the fire of resolve. She had already lost so much, but she couldn't stop now. The Kralljak had taken her friends, her comrades, and her home, but they would not take humanity's future. The final assault reached its peak when Mira and her squad found themselves face to face with the Kralljak's elite soldiers in the heart of the flagship. These soldiers were enhanced by the same AI that had once controlled the entire fleet, and they were the last line of defense. The battle that followed was the most intense of all. Each soldier fought for their life, their planet, and their species. The Kralljak soldiers were stronger, faster, and better equipped. But the humans had something the aliens did not: heart. Mira and her team fought with everything they had, pushing past their pain, their fatigue, and the overwhelming odds stacked against them. They fought with the knowledge that this was the last stand, the final chance to turn the tide of the war. In the end, it was Mira who reached the heart of the flagship, the ship's central core, the last piece of the Kralzak Empire's control. She was battered, bruised, and barely standing, but she knew this was it. With one last desperate push, she activated the self-destruct sequence, determined to end the war once and for all. The flagship shuddered as the countdown began. Mira's heart raced as she and her team made their way to the escape pods. The destruction of the Kralzak flagship would signal the end of their empire, but the cost had been immense. Thousands of lives had been lost, and the fate of humanity still hung in the balance. As the flagship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, Mira looked out at the stars. The war was over. The Kralzak had been defeated, but the victory had come at a great cost, and the scars of war would last forever. But for now, humanity had survived. They had won. And that was all that mattered. The final battle had ended, but the cost of victory was steep. The once powerful Kralzak fleet, now shattered and retreating, was a testament to humanity's strength and resilience. Earth had survived the onslaught, but it had paid a price that would forever shape the course of history. The planet, ravaged by years of war, lay in ruins. The cities were in ruins, and the landscape was scarred with the marks of battle. But amidst the devastation, there was a flicker of hope, a symbol of humanity's unwavering will to survive. Mira Solis, one of the heroes of this war, lay mortally wounded. The mission she had given everything for, her life, her soul, had succeeded. The EMP had been triggered, the Kralzak fleet had been crippled, and the tide of the war had turned. But Mira had paid the ultimate price. In the chaos of the final battle, she had been gravely injured. A piece of debris, a fragment from a collapsing alien ship, had struck her in the chest. Her breathing was labored, and the blood that stained her uniform told the story of the sacrifice she had made. In her final moments, Mira lay surrounded by the wreckage of the battlefield, her body trembling with pain. But her eyes remained focused, filled with determination. She had done it. She had led her team to victory. She had given everything for humanity's future. Mira's thoughts drifted back to the beginning of this war, before the chaos, before the pain, and before the overwhelming loss. She had been a simple soldier then, just like the rest of her comrades. But now, she had become something more. She had become a symbol of humanity's strength, its courage, and its refusal to be defeated. In those last moments, she thought of the friends she had lost, General Bonner, her squad mates, and so many others. The grief was unbearable, but she found solace in the knowledge that their sacrifice had not been in vain. As Mira's vision began to fade, she whispered a final message to herself. We did it. Her breath grew shallow, and the world around her seemed to dissolve into darkness. But even in the face of death, Mira held on to one thought. Humanity would live on. The Kralzak were defeated, and the Earth would rebuild. She had been part of that victory, and that thought gave her peace. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the cost of the war was becoming clear. The Kralzak had been repelled, their fleet crippled, and their empire left in ruins. But humanity had not emerged from the conflict unscathed. The death toll was staggering. Millions of lives lost, entire cities reduced to rubble, and countless families torn apart. The survivors of Earth's military forces, battered and bruised, stood together in the wreckage of their once great cities. They had fought with everything they had, and in the end, they had won. But the victory came at a terrible price. Ethan Cross, the brilliant strategist who had led humanity's resistance, stood at the front of a group of survivors. His face was etched with exhaustion, and his eyes reflected the heavy burden of their triumph. He had lost so many friends, so many comrades. The cost of the war weighed heavily on him, and yet he couldn't deny the truth that was now evident. Humanity had survived. Against all odds, they had shown the Kralzak that they would never bow, that they would never surrender. As Ethan looked out over the devastated Earth, the remnants of the Kralzak fleet drifting into space, he spoke to the survivors who stood with him. His voice was steady, though it carried the weight of the moment. We didn't just survive, he said, his words firm and resolute. "We showed them that humanity will never bow. We are not just survivors. We are warriors. And we will rebuild." The survivors nodded in agreement, their faces hardened but filled with a new sense of purpose. They had fought for their freedom, and they had won. The war was over, and now they would rebuild. It would not be easy. The scars of the war would remain, but they had learned something crucial. They had learned that humanity was stronger than any enemy they could face. The Kralljak had underestimated them, and now they would know the true power of human resolve. As Ethan's words echoed through the group, a sense of unity and hope began to spread. The war had been brutal, but the survivors had come through it stronger than ever. The human spirit had proven its resilience, and no alien force could ever take that away. The final scene of the war was one of both sorrow and hope. Mira's sacrifice would never be forgotten. Her memorial, erected on the battlefield where she had fallen, stood as a tribute to her courage and determination. It was a symbol of the sacrifices made by countless soldiers who had given their lives for the survival of humanity. As the camera panned over the memorial, the sound of a new day beginning filled the air. The sun, rising over the ravaged earth, symbolized the dawn of a new era, a time of rebuilding, of hope, and of strength. In the distance, the remnants of the Kralljak fleet were retreating, their once proud ships now nothing more than drifting husks. The war was over, but the struggle for humanity's future had just begun. Ethan and the survivors knew that there was still much to be done. The road to rebuilding would be long, and the scars of war would not heal quickly. But they also knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, they had proven that humanity could endure. The Kralljak had failed to break them, and no force in the universe would ever succeed. As the camera zoomed out, the Earth stood as a testament to humanity's strength and resilience. The survivors, though battered, were determined to rebuild and defend their freedom. And from the ashes of war, a new hope was born, one that would shine brighter than ever before. Mira's sacrifice, the sacrifices of so many others, would not be forgotten. They had shown the universe what humanity was capable of. And in that moment, it was clear that no matter how great the enemy, humanity would always rise, ready to fight for their future.